Natalie thought she'd finally found peace. She'd escaped a toxic marriage, found love with the most dangerous man on the West Coast, and was building an empire of art and culture. But in her father's world, happiness always came with a price. The Russian Bratva, the most ruthless crime syndicate in Eastern Europe, was calling in a blood debt her father owed, and they wanted one thing: her. Alexei Volkov had sent his best operatives to Seattle with orders to kidnap the woman Kang Dae-won loved, knowing the Korean Mafia boss would surrender his entire empire to get her back. But what the Russians didn't know was that Natalie Adolai wasn't just some crime lord's daughter or a mafia boss's fiancée. She was her father's child, trained since childhood in strategy, manipulation, and the art of war. And she was done running from who she was born to be. Welcome back to part 2. If you haven't watched part 1, go watch it now because this is about to get intense. Make sure you're subscribed and hit that notification bell because this story is going to blow your mind. Drop a comment telling me, are you team run and hide or team fight back? Now let's get into this. The text came at 3 a.m., vibrating Natalie's phone on the nightstand. She stirred in Dae-won's arms, his body warm and solid against her back in their massive bed. Over the past 3 months since the gallery opening, she'd gotten used to this, waking up safe, loved, chosen. The phone buzzed again. Natalie carefully extracted herself from Dae-won's embrace, smiling when he unconsciously reached for her even in sleep. She grabbed the phone, expecting maybe a message from Julian, who kept odd hours. The smile died on her face. Unknown number, your father made promises he couldn't keep. Now you pay his debts. We're coming for you, Natalie Adolai. Tell the Korean he can't protect you from us. V. Her blood ran cold. A second message came through, a photo. Natalie's hand trembled as she opened it. It was her. From yesterday. Leaving the cultural center. The photo had been taken from across the street, zoomed in, professional surveillance quality. Natalie. She jumped, turning to find Dae-won sitting up, instantly alert. Even fresh from sleep, with his black hair tousled and falling into his eyes, he radiated lethal awareness. The tattoos on his chest and shoulders were stark against his skin in the dim light. What's wrong? His voice was soft but edged with danger. Natalie handed him the phone without a word. She watched his face as he read the messages, watched his jaw clench, watched something cold and terrifying flash in his dark eyes. Pack a bag, he said quietly, already reaching for his own phone. We're leaving. Now. Dae-won. Now, Natalie. He was already dialing, his voice switching to rapid Korean as someone answered. Even without understanding the language, Natalie could hear the command in his tone. She should be terrified. Should be panicking. Instead, something else was rising in her chest. Something that felt like her father's daughter waking up. No, she said. Dae-won paused mid-sentence, his eyes snapping to her. He said something in Korean, probably, I'll call you back, and hung up. What did you say? I said no. Natalie stood, pulling on her silk robe. I'm not running. Natalie, these people are serious. The Volkov Bratva, they're not like the organizations here. There. I know who they are. She moved to the window, looking out at the Seattle skyline. My father did business with them for 20 years. I sat in on negotiations when I was 16. I know exactly who Alexei Volkov is. Dae-won was beside her in seconds, his hands on her shoulders, turning her to face him. Then you know why we need to get you somewhere safe. Safe. Natalie laughed, the sound bitter. There is no safe, Dae-won. Not from them. They have resources across 3 continents. If they want to find me, they will. Running just delays the inevitable. Then what do you suggest? His voice was tight with barely controlled fear, not for himself, but for her. Natalie met his eyes, and for the first time since she'd left Nigeria 7 years ago, she let him see the full depth of who she really was. I suggest we beat them at their own game. By dawn, Dae-won's kitchen table looked like a war room. Natalie sat at the head, her natural hair pulled into a high puff, wearing one of Dae-won's shirts and her own leggings. She'd laid out everything she knew about the Volkov Bratva on her laptop: organizational charts, known associates, business holdings, operational patterns. Day one stood behind her, his hands on the back of her chair, watching her work with a mixture of admiration and concern. His own people had arrived, his second-in-command, Min Jun, and his head of security, a woman named Sarah Chen. "How do you know all this?" Min Jun asked, staring at the detailed information on screen. "My father was paranoid," Natalie said without looking up. "He had files on every major player in the underworld. When I was being groomed to take over part of his operation, I had to memorize them." Alexei Volkov, age 48, took over the Bratva when he was 23 after orchestrating the assassination of the previous Pakhan, his own uncle. He's ruthless, strategic, and patient. But he has 3 weaknesses. Which are? Day one leaned closer. Pride, greed, and his daughter. Natalie pulled up a photo of a young woman with platinum blonde hair and cold blue eyes. Anastasia Volkov. Age 26. Alexei's only child. She's currently in New York, managing their East Coast art trafficking operation. Art trafficking. Sarah's eyebrows rose. The Bratva moves more than drugs and weapons. They steal and traffic high-value art, antiquities, cultural artifacts. It's how my father first connected with them. He had access to African artifacts and diamonds. They had European buyers. Natalie's fingers flew over the keyboard. Anastasia is brilliant. Speaks 6 languages, has a degree in art history from Oxford, runs an operation that moves 50 million in stolen art annually. And how does this help us? Min Jun asked. Natalie smiled, and it was sharp as a blade. Because I'm going to offer her something she can't refuse. A partnership that will make her more powerful than her father. You want to turn his daughter against him? Day one's voice held a note of awe. No. I want to give her what she already wants. Independence from Daddy's empire and a legitimate business front that's more profitable than anything Alexei's built. Natalie pulled up her own gallery's financial reports. My cultural center needs a partner to expand internationally. Someone with connections to European art markets, restoration expertise, and capital to invest. On paper, Anastasia is perfect. On paper, she's also a criminal, Sarah pointed out. So am I, technically. So is Day One. So is everyone at this table. Natalie shrugged. The difference is what we choose to do with our power. Anastasia's been trying to go legitimate for 3 years. I've been tracking her movements. She wants out of her father's shadow. Day One pulled up a chair beside her, studying her face. This is a massive gamble, Zhonghyang. If it fails, I'm no worse off than I am now. But if it works, I neutralize the threat, gain a powerful ally, and expand our business legitimately. She turned to face him fully. You said you wanted to build something meaningful with me. This is how we do it. Not by running or hiding, but by being smarter than our enemies. The room fell silent. Finally, Day One laughed, a real laugh, full of genuine delight. I fell in love with you when you were hiding your light. Now that you're letting it shine, you're absolutely terrifying. Is that a yes? That's a let's see this plan of yours. He pulled her laptop closer. Walk me through it. Oh, Natalie is not playing around. She's about to flip the script on the Russian Mafia. If you're loving this strategic queen energy, smash that like button. And make sure you're subscribed because this story is just getting started. Comment, Queen Natalie, if you're here for this. Now, back to the story. 3 days later, Natalie walked into the Modern Art Museum in New York City wearing a tailored burgundy pantsuit that hugged her curves perfectly, her natural hair styled in elegant bantu knots with gold cuffs, a deliberate callback to the night she'd first met Day One. She looked like art herself. Day One walked beside her, handsome in all black. Black suit, black shirt, his hair styled with that deliberately tousled look that made him look like a dangerous prince. His presence turned heads, but his eyes never left Natalie. You sure about this? He murmured as they entered the museum's private viewing gallery. Too late for doubts now. Natalie squeezed his hand once before letting go. Anastasia Volkov stood in front of a Klimt painting, studying it with the focused intensity of a true expert. In person, she was even more striking than her photos. Tall and lean in a white power suit, platinum hair in a severe bun, ice blue eyes that missed nothing. She turned as they approached, and a smile curved her lips. Ms. Audley, Mr. Kong. How lovely that you accepted my invitation. Natalie's eyebrow arched. Your invitation? I was under the impression I requested this meeting. Did you? Anastasia's smile widened. How curious. I could have sworn I sent word through my channels 3 days ago that I wanted to speak with you. Before my father's rather clumsy attempt at intimidation. The admission hung in the air between them. You're not here on your father's orders, Day One said. It wasn't a question. God, no. Alexei's methods are so tiresome. Kidnapping, extortion, violence. Anastasia waved a dismissive hand. So 20th century. I prefer a more civilized approach to business. And what business did you want to discuss? Natalie kept her voice neutral. The same business you came to propose, I imagine. A partnership. Anastasia gestured to the painting. Klimt's Portrait of a Lady. Stolen from a gallery in Italy in 1997, recovered last year. Worth an estimated $60 million. Do you know what fascinates me about it? The theft or the recovery? Natalie asked. Neither. What fascinates me is that for 23 years, it existed in a shadow space, too valuable to sell, too notorious to display, functionally worthless despite its value. A prisoner of its own worth. Anastasia's blue eyes fixed on Natalie. I know something about being a prisoner. Your father's empire. My father's legacy. His reputation. His enemies and his debts. Anastasia's perfect composure cracked slightly. Did you know he promised you to the Bratva Council as a bargaining chip? Not even as leverage against Mr. Kong. He wants to use you to settle a 20-year-old grudge with your father by humiliating Adewale Adelai's precious daughter. Natalie's stomach turned, but she kept her expression neutral. That's not going to happen. No, it's not. Anastasia pulled out her phone, tapped a few buttons, and handed it to Natalie. Because I've already stopped it. The phone showed an email thread in Russian. Natalie couldn't read it, but Day One leaned over her shoulder and his intake of breath told her everything. You told the council the operation was compromised, he said. I told them Ms. Audley had already established protection with the Korean syndicate, the Chinese triads, and had alerted the FBI to potential threats against her. I told them the exposure risk was too high for minimal gain. Anastasia reclaimed her phone. I may have exaggerated some details, but the council voted to drop the matter. My father was outvoted 6-1. Why? Natalie asked. Why would you protect me? Because you're more valuable to me as a partner than as a victim. Anastasia's smile turned genuine. I've been following your work for 2 years, Ms. Audley. Your gallery. Your cultural center. The way you've built a legitimate empire from nothing while navigating a world designed to crush women like us. You did what I've been trying to do. Escape the shadow of a powerful, criminal father while maintaining your own power. And what do you want from me? Exactly what you came to offer. A partnership. Your cultural center goes international. Galleries in London, Paris, Moscow. I provide the European connections, the capital, the expertise. In return, I get a legitimate business that makes me independently wealthy and politically untouchable. We both win. And your father? My father is old-fashioned. He'll rage and threaten, but ultimately, if I'm making the Bratva money legitimately and expanding our influence, the council will support me. Especially when I'm partnered with Adewale Adelai's daughter and the king of the West Coast Korean Mafia. Anastasia extended her hand. Do we have a deal? Natalie looked at Day One, a silent conversation passing between them. He gave her a nearly imperceptible nod. The choice was hers. She took Anastasia's hand. We have a deal. But I have conditions. I would be disappointed if you didn't. No trafficking of stolen goods through our galleries. Everything we deal is legitimate, properly sourced, ethically acquired. If you want to go clean, we go completely clean. Anastasia's eyes glittered. Agreed. What else? If your father or anyone from the Bratva comes after me or anyone I love, our deal is void and you become my enemy instead of my ally. Fair. And my condition, when this partnership makes me more powerful than my father, when I take over the Bratva, you help me transform it. Legitimize it. Turn it into something that doesn't require blood to maintain power. Natalie smiled. Now that's a vision I can support. They shook hands, two daughters of criminal empires choosing to build something different. Of course, it wasn't that simple. 2 weeks later, Alexei Volkov himself showed up in Seattle. Natalie was in her gallery office when Day One called her, his voice tight. We have a situation. Alexei is at the Four Seasons. He's requested a meeting. With you. With both of us. He says he wants to negotiate, like civilized people. The skepticism in Day One's voice was clear. It's a trap. Probably. But refusing might provoke exactly what we're trying to avoid. Natalie leaned back in her chair, thinking. We meet him. Public place. Our terms. Natalie. He came to our city, Day One. He's on our territory. If we don't face him, we look weak. She stood, already planning. Tell him we'll meet him for dinner. At Kiansa. Tomorrow night. Just the three of us. You want to have dinner with the man who wanted to kidnap you? I want to look him in the eye and show him I'm not afraid. Natalie's voice was steel. And I want him to understand that his daughter made the right choice. The next evening, Natalie dressed for battle. She wore a stunning orange wrap dress that celebrated every curve, her natural hair styled in a voluminous afro that framed her face like a crown. Gold jewelry at her ears, wrists, and throat. She looked powerful, beautiful, untouchable. Day One wore all black, his power color. His hair was perfectly tousled, his tattoos visible at his neck and hands. Together, they looked like exactly what they were, a king and queen of their domain. Alexei Volkov was already seated when they arrived at Kiansa, which Day One had closed for the evening. He was smaller than Natalie expected, maybe 5'10", with the lean build of a distance runner. His blonde hair was slicked back, and the scar across his left cheek was prominent in the restaurant's soft lighting. His gray eyes tracked them as they approached, calculating and cold. Ms. Audalai. Mr. Kong. He stood, offering his hand. Neither of them took it. Alexei smiled, unbothered, and sat back down. I suppose pleasantries are unnecessary. Let me be direct. My daughter has betrayed me to ally with you. I want to know what you offered her. Respect, Natalie said simply, taking her seat. Day One sat beside her, his body angled protectively. Something you've apparently never given her. Anastasia is my heir. She has my complete respect. You treat her like an asset, not a person. Like a tool to be used in your games. Natalie accepted the tea the server poured, her movements graceful and unhurried. I offered her partnership. Equality. A chance to build something that's hers, not just an extension of your empire. And in doing so, you've made an enemy of me. Have I? Natalie met his cold gaze without flinching. Because from where I'm sitting, you have no moves left. Your council has already voted against action toward me. Your daughter is now my business partner, which makes her untouchable. And you're sitting in the heart of Korean Mafia territory, surrounded by people loyal to the man beside me. She sipped her tea. The only person who made an enemy tonight is you, Mr. Volkov. You made an enemy of your own daughter. Alexei's jaw clenched. You're very confident for someone so young. I'm Adewale Audalai's daughter. Confidence is genetic. Your father died owing me a debt. My father paid every debt he owed before he died. I saw the ledgers personally. Natalie set down her teacup. The favor you claimed he owed was a fabrication. You wanted leverage over the Korean syndicate's port operations, and you thought kidnapping me would give you that leverage. But you miscalculated. Did I? You assumed I was weak. An easy target. A bargaining chip. Natalie leaned forward. You forgot to check if I was my father's daughter in more than name. That was your mistake. For a long moment, Alexei studied her. Then, surprisingly, he laughed. You know what? I like you, Ms. Audley. You have spine. Anastasia was right. You're wasted as a victim. He pulled out a business card, sliding it across the table. If you ever tire of the legitimate life, call me. The Bratva could use someone like you. I'll pass. Natalie didn't touch the card. But I'll give you some free advice. Let your daughter go. Support her new venture. Because if you don't, she'll eventually take everything from you anyway, and she won't be gentle about it. At least this way, you maintain some dignity. Alexei stood, buttoning his suit jacket. We'll see. Enjoy your empire, Ms. Audley. Mr. Kong. He nodded to Day One. I hope it lasts. After he left, Natalie's hands started shaking, the adrenaline finally catching up to her. Day One immediately covered her hands with his. You were incredible. I thought I was going to throw up the entire time. You didn't show it. He lifted her hand to his lips, kissing her knuckles. You faced down one of the most dangerous men in the world and didn't blink. Do you understand how extraordinary you are? Natalie laughed shakily. I just made a very powerful enemy. No. You made a very powerful enemy realize you're not worth the cost of fighting. Day One pulled her close. There's a difference. The next 6 months were a whirlwind. Natalie and Anastasia's partnership launched with a gallery opening in London that made international news. Their model, showcasing African and Eastern European artists, creating cultural dialogue through art, was revolutionary and profitable. Natalie split her time between Seattle, London, and occasionally Moscow, building an empire that spanned continents. Day One was beside her for every step, his business acumen and her cultural expertise creating something neither could have built alone. Their cultural center in Seattle expanded, offering free art education to underserved communities, scholarships for aspiring artists, and exhibition space for voices that had been historically silenced. And slowly, carefully, Natalie and Anastasia began the delicate work of legitimizing parts of their respective family empires. Did you ever imagine this? Anastasia asked one evening, as they sat in Natalie's London gallery after hours, sharing expensive wine. Over the months, they developed an unlikely friendship, two women who understood the weight of legacy and the courage it took to choose differently. Building an international art empire with a Russian Mafia princess? No. Can't say I saw this coming. Natalie smiled. I imagined escape. Freedom. I didn't imagine friendship. Anastasia's usually cool expression softened. Thank you, Natalie, for seeing me as more than my father's daughter. Same to you. Natalie raised her glass. To daughters who refused to become their fathers. And to the empires we're building instead. They clinked glasses, two queens forging their own kingdoms. Back in Seattle, Natalie returned home late one night to find Day One in his study, staring at architectural plans. What's this? She asked, coming up behind him to wrap her arms around his waist. The next phase. He turned in her embrace, his hands settling on her hips. We've legitimized significant portions of my operation. The clubs are clean. The restaurants are clean. The real estate holdings are clean. I've been thinking about what you said, about using power to build instead of just maintain. And I want to create a foundation for families affected by gang violence. Scholarships, counseling, job training, housing assistance. His dark eyes were intense. I can't bring back the people who've died in this life, but I can try to prevent more deaths. Give people alternatives. Natalie's throat tightened with emotion. Day One, that's beautiful. I want to name it after my father. The foundation, He died because of this world. Maybe something good can come from that. She pulled him down for a kiss, pouring all her love and pride into it. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, she rested her forehead against his. I love you, she whispered. The man you are, the man you're becoming. All of it. Marry me, he said. You already asked me that. I said yes, remember? I know. But we've been engaged for 8 months, and I'm impatient. His hands cupped her face. Marry me tomorrow. This weekend. Next month. I don't care when, Zhonghyang, but I want you to be my wife. I want the world to know you're mine and I'm yours. Next month, Natalie decided. That gives us time to plan something beautiful. Something that honors both our cultures. Something that's ours. Next month, Day One agreed, sealing it with a kiss. They married on a perfect Saturday in May at the cultural center they'd built together. The ceremony was a fusion of Korean and Nigerian traditions, colorful fabrics and elegant hanbok, traditional blessings in multiple languages, food that celebrated both cultures, and music that made everyone dance. Natalie wore 3 dresses, a traditional Nigerian iro and buba in stunning purple and gold for the ceremony, a white Korean hanbok for the formal photos, and a modern reception gown in deep emerald that made Day One's eyes darken with desire. Her natural hair was styled in goddess locks adorned with gold beads and fresh flowers. She'd never felt more beautiful. Day One wore a traditional black and gold hanbok for the ceremony, and he looked like a prince from a fairy tale. His eyes never left her, tracking her every movement like she was the only person in the world. Julian walked her down the aisle, tears in his eyes despite his attempts to look stoic. Dad would be proud, he whispered before handing her to Day One. You found someone who matches your strength. Don't let him go. Never, Natalie promised. The ceremony was intimate despite the 100 guests, just Natalie and Day One, promising to love, honor, and challenge each other, to build together and stand together, to be partners in every sense of the word. When Day One lifted her veil, his voice was thick with emotion. My queen. My treasure. My Zhonghyang. My king. My partner. My heart. Their kiss was met with cheers and applause from their gathered family. Blood family and chosen family, Korean and Nigerian and everything in between, legitimate business associates and reformed criminals, artists and activists and everything else. Anastasia was there with a very handsome date, grinning as she raised her glass. She'd officially taken over parts of the bratva that same week, with the council's blessing. Alexei had been encouraged to retire. The changing of the guard had been surprisingly peaceful, largely because Anastasia had proven her new ventures were more profitable than her father's old ways. Minjun made a speech that had everyone crying and laughing. Sarah gave a toast that was equal parts touching and threatening to anyone who might hurt her boss or his new wife. And as the night wore on and the dancing began, Natalie found herself swaying in Day One's arms, surrounded by the empire they'd built, the family they'd chosen, and the future they were creating. Happy, Day One murmured against her ear. Deliriously. She pulled back to look at him. Are you? I told you once that I'd built an empire on blood and fear, and none of it meant anything until I found you. His hands tightened on her waist. You've given me more than love, Natalie. You've given me purpose. A reason to be better. A future worth building. We gave that to each other, Natalie corrected. I was hiding from myself until you made me remember who I was. We saved each other. Then here's to salvation. He kissed her softly. And to the empire we're building together. To us, Natalie agreed. The king and queen of our own destiny. 1 year later, Natalie stood in her Seattle office, reviewing plans for their 5th international gallery. This one in Tokyo, because Day One wanted to honor his Korean heritage while expanding into broader Asian markets. Her phone rang. Anastasia. Please tell me you're calling with good news, Natalie answered. The Moscow gallery just acquired the Petrov collection. 30 pieces of contemporary Russian art, all legitimately sourced, all by artists who've never had international exposure. Anastasia's excitement was clear even over the phone. Natalie, this is huge. This legitimizes us completely in the Moscow art scene. That's incredible. When's the exhibition? 3 months. And I want you to curate it personally. Your eye, your vision. This needs to be perfect. I'll be there. Natalie made a note. How are things with the family business? Clean. Cleaner every day. We've divested from 70% of the illegal operations. The council is actually happy. Turns out legitimate business is more profitable and way less risky. Anastasia laughed. Who knew? Visionaries knew. Natalie smiled. We knew. After they hung up, Natalie turned to find Day One leaning in her doorway, watching her with that intense gaze that still made her heart skip. How long have you been standing there? She asked. Long enough to fall in love with you all over again. He crossed to her, pulling her into his arms. You're changing the world, you know that? We're changing the world. There's a difference. Always, with you. He kissed her forehead. That's why I love you. Just one of many reasons, I hope. One of infinite reasons. His hand moved to her still flat stomach. Speaking of which, when were you going to tell me? Natalie's eyes widened. How did you? You've been drinking ginger tea instead of coffee for 2 weeks. You turned down wine at dinner last night. And you have that glow. His smile was tender. How far along? 8 weeks. I was going to tell you tonight. I have a whole plan involving your favorite dessert and a very unsubtle gift. She placed her hand over his. Are you happy? Happy. Day One's voice cracked. Natalie, I'm terrified and elated and completely overwhelmed. We're having a baby. A whole person. Half you, half me. A whole new legacy, Natalie agreed. Not defined by our father's choices, but by ours. They're going to be so loved. Day One knelt, pressing a kiss to her stomach. So protected. And so free to be whoever they want to be. Tears streamed down Natalie's face. That's all I want. For them to have choices we didn't. They will. I promise. He stood, pulling her close. And they'll have a mother who's brilliant and strong and refuses to be limited by anyone's expectations. They'll have a father who's learning every day how to be better. And they'll have a family that spans continents and cultures. They'll have everything, Natalie whispered. 6 months later, Natalie gave birth to twins, a boy and a girl. The boy they named Adewale Kong, after her father. The girl they named Jiwoo Kong, after Day One's mother. And as Natalie held her children, looking at Day One's exhausted, joyful face, she thought about the journey that had brought her here. A toxic marriage that had taught her she deserved better. 101 requests for divorce that had freed her to find real love. A dangerous man who'd seen her completely and loved her anyway. A choice to embrace her power instead of running from it. A partnership that had built an empire. And now, 2 tiny humans who represented the future. A future not bound by the sins of the past, but full of infinite possibility. What are you thinking? Day One asked softly, careful not to wake the sleeping babies. I'm thinking about how Preston asking for divorce 101 times was the best thing that ever happened to me. Natalie smiled. Because it led me here. To you. To them. To us. From divorce papers to diapers. Day One laughed quietly. Quite a journey. The best journey. Natalie leaned against him. And it's just beginning. Just beginning, he agreed. And it was. Together, they'd transformed from broken pieces into something whole. From individual kingdoms into a shared empire. From running from their legacies into embracing their power and using it to build something better. Natalie Adewale had been asked for divorce 101 times. But on the 101st time, when she'd finally said yes, she hadn't lost anything. She'd gained everything. A partnership built on respect and passion. An empire built on vision and values. A family built on choice and love. And a future that was entirely, beautifully, powerfully hers. 5 years later. The Seattle Times featured a full-page spread on Natalie Kong, profiling her as one of the most influential art curators in the world. Her galleries spanned 8 countries. Her cultural centers had provided education and opportunity to over 10,000 emerging artists. Her foundation, run jointly with her husband, had helped over 500 families escape gang violence and build new lives. She was powerful, successful, respected, and most importantly, she was happy. At home, 5-year-old Adewale and Ji-woo were arguing over who got to show their parents the painting they'd made at school, both speaking in a mix of English, Korean, and the Yoruba phrases their Uncle Julian had taught them. Day one refereed with the patience of a man who'd learned that the chaos of family was infinitely better than the cold order of his old life. And Natalie watched it all, this beautiful, messy, perfect life, and smiled. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. For a moment, her heart clenched, old fears dying hard. Then she opened it. Unknown, I saw the article. You've done well for yourself. Congrats on everything. P. Preston. After 5 years of silence. Natalie stared at the message for a long moment, then typed a response. Thank you. I hope you found your happiness too. And she meant it. Because that's what healing looked like. Not holding grudges. Not needing revenge. Just building something so beautiful that the past couldn't touch it. She deleted the message thread and looked up to find Day One watching her, question in his eyes. Preston, she explained simply. And nothing. That chapter is closed. She stood, moving into his arms. This is my story now. Ours. The one we're writing together. Best story ever written, Day One murmured, kissing her. Gross. The twins chorused, making exaggerated gagging sounds. Natalie and Day One broke apart, laughing. You'll understand when you're older, Natalie told them. Never. Ji-woo declared dramatically. We'll see, Day One said, winking at Natalie. And as the evening settled into the comfortable chaos of family dinner, homework help, bedtime stories, and stolen kisses when the kids weren't looking, Natalie reflected on the truth she'd learned. Sometimes the worst thing that happens to you, 101 divorce requests, a toxic marriage, a life that felt like slow suffocation, is actually the universe's way of pushing you toward your destiny. Sometimes saying yes to an ending is really saying yes to a beginning. Sometimes the most dangerous man is exactly the safe harbor you need. And sometimes, the power you've been running from your entire life is exactly what you need to build the future you deserve. Natalie Adelaikong had learned all these truths the hard way. But she wouldn't change a single moment. Because every moment, good and bad, had led her here. To love. To power. To choice. To family. To home. And that's the end of Natalie and Day One's story. Did you love this ending? Natalie became the queen she was always meant to be, built an international empire, married the love of her life, and had twins. This is the happy ending she deserved. If you loved this story, you need to smash that like button until it breaks. Subscribe for more dark romance, mafia love stories, and strong female leads. Drop a crown emoji in the comments if you're Team Natalie forever. Share this with someone who needs to hear that leaving a toxic situation can lead to something beautiful. Tell me in the comments, what was your favorite part of the whole story? Thank you so much for going on this journey with me. Your support means everything. Don't forget to check out our playlist for more amazing romance stories. Remember, never settle for someone who treats divorce like a weekly routine. Wait for the one who sees your power and helps you build an empire. See you in the next story.